Channel here over at Subscribestar. Thanks to Vegan and LG, who's going to send me some cool pocket knives and comics. Mahalo. I am so glad I decided to become a micro nano grade F niche internet celebrity. The amount of excitement I have over comics and pocket knives. You showed me a picture of these pocket knives. I'm like, oh my god, I have to have those. Anyway, so Indiana Jones and the 40-year-old wine aunt. You're going to see a fundamental change in Hollywood in your lifetime. Within like the next 10 years, I think you're going to see a decline from the big screen and from the power of Hollywood in general. I was listening to a Nerdrotic where he said that I got that idea. He was talking about people used to gather around the radio for shows, and technology replaced it with a big screen, which is eventually the silent films at first, and then they got the talkies, and they had silent films with placards, and the talkies and all this kind of stuff, and orchestras, and that all changed to get cheaper and cheaper from film. It changed to digital, and but eventually. And Hollywood is doing this to themselves. Like, this isn't a technological change. This is a sociological change because Hollywood's run by Bolsheviks, like literal out and out Bolsheviks. That's not a hyperbolic statement. If you did a political party analysis of the 1,000 top people in Hollywood, it would be far toxic left wing extremist beliefs. They're insane. They're absolutely insane. They're doing this to themselves. And so my point is, like, within your lifetime, you might see, people doing home theater stuff or listening to a lot of live streams. There's only 24 hours in the day. And so every minute you spend listening to, a live stream on YouTube or Rumble or Odyssey, that's a minute that the mainstream narrative doesn't have a hold of you, which is freaking beautiful. Beautiful to be outside of their control. Their control is slipping away bit by bit. And Hollywood, you see how much money they are losing. You see bombs and misses in movies that don't break even or barely break even. You've never seen this kind of stuff before, especially like even if you just follow Disney. It's like there's something going on. There's something going on. Like Hollywood is drinking the Kool-Aid, and you're seeing all this kind of stuff come to fruition. So the summary is, this could be an hour-long video, but I swear it's not going to be. If you want to skip the movie, and this is coming from someone who didn't hate the Crystal Skull, because I thought it was a send-off. I thought Shia LaBeouf, I know he's not a liked character. He did a fine job in it. A little bit unlikable in the movie, but it kind of grew on me, and it had Marion from the original film. I thought it was the end, so I was going to be kind of forgiving. It's like, okay, rides off in the sunset. It worked. I was happy with it. It was fine for what it was. Don't see this movie if you like the indie series or Harrison Ford. It's that bad. It's not Indiana Jones. It's fever dream indie. Taking painkillers, you'll have the weirdest. I had a bad, weird reaction to painkillers once. I just had the weirdest dreams. It's if you gave Golan Globus $300 million, you gave them the script in Cantonese and they translated it to Martian to make the movie. This movie is projected, I think, to lose $250 million. If you have to, go to movie 7 if you're curious. And if you're curious about Golan Globus movies, they're like low budget ninja movies from the 80s, or who is that guy, Roger Corman, who made the movies that Mystery Science Theater has successfully parodied, or Troma movies. Be like if you gave those guys $300 million. That's the expectation of this movie. That's the rough budget of this movie. And some people, I saw one guy said he thinks it came up to 327. Who knows? To break even might be anywhere from the lowest estimate I saw was $850 million just to break even. Other people are putting it higher. Who knows? I think the movie is in trouble, and I think Hollywood in general is in trouble. Even like a name powerful as Indiana Jones or Star Wars. And keep in mind, like Disney owns these properties. They do Marvel and what's the pirate movie? Pirates of the Caribbean. They own a lot of these brands. They should be printing money. At least you should have been starting the next generation of indie to try to get the young voters. And politics is downstream from culture, so it's kind of interesting little segue there. The thing is, indie is a un-PC character. So he's best set in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. So that would be the better way to film these movies, which with CGI now, and even like not necessarily 3D printing, but if you have a set designer, you say, hey, we need build sets that look like it's 1930s Eastern Europe or something, and then the rest will do a CG. They can do that for a relatively decent amount of money. It's not an insane amount of money to build these type of sets where you think you're in whatever to do the spy versus spy in the 30s and stuff. Anyway, so it's why this movie is bad. Besides all the culture war stuff, which uh, I'm kind of I'll save to the end because I know most people will dip out after the first few minutes of the video because it's kind of tricky to talk about that kind of stuff. Honestly, to some extent, you just can't talk about it on YouTube at all because it has just too many hot words because of the time period and the antagonists. The hint is that Mangold, and it sounds like mangled, as if he mangled this intellectual property, which he very much did. And Disney really, really hate blonde people, and they want you to hate blonde people. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Blonde people are awesome, the people of the light. So the characters go in and out of character, not only the established vibe from the earlier 4 films, but within the framework of the 2-hour movie itself. You can't do that. You have to at least be internally consistent. Set up whatever ridiculous rules you want to set up, but you have to abide by them. This could be a really long video with all the examples of the logical faults. I mean, that's why Mahler is able to make 4-hour plus videos of these movies, because especially with a movie like this, because there's a lot of problems with it. There are logical faults, not exactly a character error. It's sort of a logical inconsistency in the writing, but then there are things like actual character errors and mischaracterizations, like in Disney Star Wars, where Luke Skywalker, who is the analogy for that, or metaphor, simile, whatever, I didn't do well in English, was an angel who walked into the lion's den to confront Satan and his highest angel to redeem when he went to the Death Star. Or no, that wasn't the Death Star. That was the either Darth Vader's ship or the Emperor's ship or something. That they had their character attempt to sneak up on his nephew and delete him, Kylo Ren, when he was sleeping. And even the interview with Mark Hamill goes, yeah, that's not Luke's. I mean, to his freaking credit, and he's a far left-wing dude. He says that's not Skywalker, that's Jake Skywalker. He said that in an interview. He's a left-wing guy in echo chamber, but I'm not going to say he has balls. I just don't think he knew what he was saying exactly. Like, where even he comes out and admits, yeah, so you're saying that Luke Skywalker is not the character that was established for this what he was saying had roots to it, and I don't think he realized that when he said it until later, which is kind of lovable about the guy, even though he is a far left whack job. Anyway, I think he had Trump derangement syndrome, but I just I don't care. I forgive people for that. I don't blame people for what they what they're ignorant of. Anyway, so there are these character mischaracterizations for Luke Skywalker, where it's like, yeah, he's not really the kind of guy who'd go sneak up and take a lightsaber to his nephew. And if he tried, he would have been successful if he really wanted to do it. But maybe his heart wasn't. He's a master Jedi. I don't think he was up there at his father's level, but as he got older, he would have been his father's level and exceeded it. So he would have been successful if he wanted to do that. But it's completely inconsistent with his earlier lore and canon. So some examples: the Mary Sue, who's Phoebe Walker or Waller-Bridge character, who is Indy's goddaughter, is a sociopath in this movie. But they play it off for laughs and cute. Like, oh, it's cutesy. It's so cutesy. She tried to get you. She tried to get you deleted. You're like, that's not cute. How is that cute? That doesn't make sense. That's not played off for laughs. Like, try to get him in a precarious situation. That's might be cute as long as he's not in any real danger. But to seriously put an 80-year-old man in danger so she can profit, that's what a sociopath does. Like, that's insane. You can't make her the hero and then redeem her at the end of the movie. Some characters have to be established and they can grow, but you're not going to grow from a sociopath. You have to grow from someone who might be doing things they have to do to get by, but not to delete people. There's so many examples of good stories that show growth, but this is weirdly written. And then she has a sidekick character. I don't even remember the kid's name. He's in the top image I just scrolled through. Who is also kind of a sociopath. He's a scumbag thief, but in the movie he's stealing from blonde people. So Mangold wants you to hate him. So it's okay because it's okay to have this blind, incandescent genodeletal behavior, hatred for blonde people. So the kid has no redeeming features whatsoever. His short round was funny. He did stunts. This new short round, and he was a good actor. He was like riding on the elephant and cracking jokes and playing cards with Indy. He was a very lovable character. This new short round is not that at all. It's let me find that image of him. He starts off as a scumbag thief. There's nothing. There's nothing. It's they've changed. They've completely. They put this dark, sinister filter over the Indiana Jones series in the fifth movie. It's not. That's why I say it's not Indiana Jones. It's something like in this image. You're not getting how evil the kid is and how evil the woman is too. Where like you look at this kid and you look at it and you go, he's just going to grow up to be a back alley killer. Like Short Round was an entirely different type of character. There's nothing cute about him or her in the movie. It doesn't make any sense. So Mangold's version of Disney feels hateful and cheap. Like someone said in the comments, it looks brilliant from a distance, like with the sound off, but when you look up close, it feels dark and sinister. How do I explain? It feels hateful, sinister, and subversive, which you go, oh, well, sometimes movies do that to serve the purpose of the movie. Fair enough, if everyone's on board with what they're doing. This is different. This is different. And to the point I say, don't watch the movie if you're really a fan and you enjoy rewatching Star Wars, Indy, and whatever other movies he's been in, because this movie will gently, subtly poison those movies. That's how subversive it is. But if you're kind of checked out of those movies, you can find this movie online. You can watch it when it comes out to Disney Plus streaming, and watch it, and you will see what they're doing in Hollywood, because it feels a fundamental shifting of gears. It, like I said, it's a Golan Globus giving them $300 million, but also an evil version of Golan Globus, because they just made fun, silly ninja movies. They weren't darkly sinister and evil where they broke the characters. It was just people throwing stars and using grappling hooks and a bunch of swinging from things. It was just fun nonsense. This is something completely different. It feels like the people who made it are actually lizards who are wearing human costumes, who are kind of doing their best to write like humans, but their lizard evil is coming through. Like, I don't know if you've seen artificial intelligence commercials. They're a window into hell. You can find them on YouTube. I mean, some of them are deeply disturbing. Like you look at AI and you're like, oh, maybe we should get control of AI just in case. And then I was reading this scientific paper on trying to compare AI when it hits its exponential growth phase to human intelligence, and it's like you're comparing exponential growth. You can't do it, and you realize they would be like a god. You've created a god, an artificial silicon god. Anyway, so like my point is like, yeah, when like the smartest guys on the planet are saying we really want to make sure we have AI worked out before we take it outside intranet to the internet, because it could do anything. And it's like, that's not science fiction. Anyway. So Phoebe and the kid are supposed to be these lovable rogues, like in Raiders and Temple of Doom. Came out in 81, 84, and then the Last Crusade was 89. So that's a whole different time period. Like, things were wildly different. And 2008, when the fourth movie came out, this Crystal Skull, that was pre-Trump 2016 and pre-BLM riots 2020. That itself was also a different cultural universe. The cultural war has advanced so far, and the movies are not. They think the bulk of the audience is on board with what these left-wing people are pushing. 13 minutes. And they're not. That's why I think you're going to see a fundamental restructure of Hollywood, because they're going to lose. You eventually, like, you're gonna find these catastrophic losses. Like the comic book industry, it's these cascading series of failures where the money builds up, the losses build up, and then you realize, like, oh, we can't get out from under this. This is just nonsense. And it's interesting to think, because the movies are subsidizing comic books as you're keeping them to keep the IPs alive. So what will happen in the next 10 years will be interesting to see. So that's what I mean when I say don't watch this movie, because it fundamentally restructures the indie universe. It's worse than what Disney did to Star Wars, because Star Wars isn't subtle about what they were doing in 2015. They weren't subversive. The Star Wars characters are comically stupid right from the start, cartoonishly, kind of like the worst. Like if you took what was the last Return of the Jedi, you took that and you just made it even more stupider. Like you knew what you're getting into with Disney Star Wars. You knew that you were not getting the real Star Wars. Like the sets, the costumes might have been similar, but that was it. Indy 5 is different. They want you to think you're getting Indy, but what you're getting is this torn down, reconstructed, deconstructed version where Indy is in the real world and it's just this 80-year-old guy. And see, this is set in, I think, 1969. This doesn't look like Indy. It looks like a movie he did in the 80s. I forget, like Witness or something. None of this makes sense. This isn't the Indy universe. It's just a silly fantasy universe based on the Henry Rider Haggard stories from 200 years ago, which were excellent. Nobody wants to see Indy or, all those kind of lost world stories. There's like a half dozen guys who specialize in that, and they're all available free online. Anyway, so nobody wants to see Indy in the 60s because now we look back at the filthy commies and hippies and understand how they were just useful idiots of the globalists. People hate hippie, druggy degenerates. Even people who are on the left, it's like there's left-wing, libertarian, liberal, free-thinking kind of stuff, but like junkies or something else. Hollywood kind of glorifies that, or people who like that was a dark side of the hippie movement, is like gateway drugs. I know people get triggered when they say that, but it's a kind of gateway lifestyle as you get further and further away from like hitting these checkpoints on life and starting a family, and these people kind of got into darker and darker stuff where weed kind of went out the window or kind of went into pills and hallucinogens, and then it went into the harder chemical type of stuff. Anyway, Hollywood glorifies the hippies, but many of them just turned out to be thieving junkies running away as soon as somebody got pregnant. And it's like this would be a very long video to talk about the deconstruction that started post-war by those filthy, godless Bolshevik parasites. So they have a scene where, if I could edit these videos, I'd probably edit that out. So they have a scene where Indy walks into a room to stop the sale of the Archimedes factory. I think he's the guy who said Eureka, famous for like figuring out water displacement or something. And it's filled with armed illegal dealers, and Indy tries to stop this woman from selling it. That logically doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense in the Indy universe. Indy isn't stupid or crazy. How exactly did he think he was going to go into a room with a dozen armed cutthroat type of guys who are already engaged in the illegal sale of artworks and artifacts and archaeological type of stuff? Though I mean, wherever it's in the Middle East, it's it's legal where it is, but it's like they're these are not people to mess around with. This is just childishly illogical. As an adult, it hurts to watch writing this poorly constructed, to write a scene that's this poorly put together. So how do you fix the scene? Well, let's just spitball here from the absurd to whatever. You light the bar on fire and you use it as a distraction. Like get a barrel of strong rum, put holes in it. I don't know, with like a boot, something. Quietly, you spill bottles of rum around the room. You light 4 flares at once and then you toss them. You get a ridiculous display of blue alcohol fire. I mean, they did it in Raiders, but you get the idea. You get a mass amount of smoke and you get the bright red flare. For filming and for dramatic effect, it looks really cool. It's a stupid thing that I just came up with because, I'm not a film person, but it's a better plan than what he did. He could walk in with a belt of grenades and a dead man switch, or just a single grenade with the pin pushed in and the spoon depressed. He uses it to get the time device. The spoon gets released accidentally, something. It starts the timer. He realizes he's got a live, thing in his hand, and it's got like 5 seconds. The S hits the fan. You get the idea that they go out the window and the walls blow out or whatever. Or he could have simply walked in there with a machine pistol, 30 rounds, finger on the trigger. Even armed men are not prepared to die over a piece of art. People cut their losses. Instead, he walks in there. It doesn't matter. Like he's 80-year-old guy and it kind of shambles in there. It wouldn't matter if he's in the peak of physical health. Even if he had his Smith and Wesson in his pocket. It's like, but these guys also have everything else, and it's a dozen of them to one of you. It's like he walks in there and he tries to drag her away, and she's like 2 inches taller than he is, and he tries to drag the artifact away as if they care, like as if the guys are going to support him. They're there to buy stolen material. They don't care. The police are already bribed. Like none of that logically makes sense. That's how is that plan going to work? Oh, well, that's just a movie. Yeah, that's copium. That's an excuse. They do that in Star Wars too. That's bad writing, and it does not belong in a $300 million movie. It wouldn't belong in any kind of movie. It's like, yeah, logically, how is that going to work? Oh, I don't know. It's just, it's just kids' movie. Yeah, but I mean, even kids' movies are better than this. So another example is you have these evil blonde time traveling Germans. Yes, that's real. Who are cartoonishly stupid, evil, and incompetent, like way over the top evil. And this is kind of tricky to say on YouTube because it's full of these hot words. Mangold portrays them as comically sociopathic to the point where they delete anyone that moves instead of using like knockout gas or just wearing masks or many other ways. Mangold wants shots of the evil blonde men with unfortunate mustaches deleting dozens of people, including other blonde people who presumably they're nationalists of an F type variety who they love their tribe, that kind of stuff, but they're willing to just, oh yeah, we'll just delete a dozen other blonde Americans who are probably maybe even of Germanic heritage at the time. It's like that doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense in the story universe because Mangold wants you to believe they're pure evil. And then they have this black chick with them who's got her. It's kind of a cool little afro. If anything comes out of the movie, maybe they'll bring back the afro for chicks. So she's there to be the voice of the moral high ground, except they all work for, I don't know, CIA or some secret organization. So no matter black or not, she's also a wet work familiar scumbag. But she acts surprised by their sociopathic violence. It's like, so did she just start work for the CIA? Has she never done this kind of thing before? Has she just met these guys? That doesn't make sense. And it. Okay, so she's black now. She's black, and in the real world, Jesse Owens was treated better in Germany than in America. And it's a trip when you tell people, like you tell people on Twitter this story, and it's like it shuts them down immediately because they just don't know what they don't know. They have this fictionalized Hollywood version. You look at them and you go like, so everything you know about a topic you got from Hollywood? And then when they realize that, it stops them if they're willing to be intellectually honest. Because like we all went through that experience like 20 or 30 years ago, realized like everything I know about some topic, the portrayal of the South, men in the South and pickup trucks and stars and bars and rifle racks is like, oh, everything I kind of feel about them is coming from Hollywood. And then you step back and realize, holy cow, I know what Hollywood wants me to know about the South. And there's a lot of people who are in that perspective who don't, like, they watch Hollywood, they watch TV and movies and they think like, yeah, I know it's fiction, but they don't really know it's fiction. And there's studies that show that it works on your brain no matter what. The more people watch TV, the less they're able to distinguish between truth and fiction. And that's like, I know a friend of mine who's an attorney, and he's guilty of this himself. Where I ask him, like, I'll catch him, and he's like full grown attorney, and I'll catch him in things where I go, you know that because Hollywood taught you that. And he'll catch himself. You're like, oh, you're right. It's a trip. It's a trip to like catch adults in that, like where they just people parrot information. Anyway, in the real world, Jesse Owens and like African and Middle Eastern soldiers, they got along fine with the Germans, 80 years ago. But in Mangold's world, the Germans are just blindly evil and they hate anyone who's not blue or green eyed. So you have them working together. That doesn't make sense until you realize that she is just there to be the pretty face of the moral high ground. Then later in the film, the evil blonde man has to brutally delete her. And Mangold juxtaposes the shots of the innocent angel black girl who's trying to do the right thing, even though she's working for a scumbag organization, so that doesn't make sense. But he juxtaposes that with the evil blonde guy holding a smoking gun. And this is another thing, is they show her get shot, and she's bleeding out on board an aircraft. That's a level of brutality that the first four movies didn't have. Yes, people were getting blasted left and right. They're getting fallen off trucks left and right. But you didn't see it up close like that with this kind of viciousness. This was a departure. It was a whole different type of thing. So the reason he's doing it is, like, the earlier films had the kind of I don't know, like a PG vibe to them, almost a PG vibe to them. Because yes, there was violence, but it was very carefully filmed violence, and this is a step up to where this is something much darker and much more sinister, because they want you to see that these blondes are comically evil sociopaths. And it's just, I mean, it's way too on the nose, because this doesn't come out of a vacuum. We're in this culture war now. People are kind of aware of some of the things that are going on. So this is a bad indie movie in the sense that this isn't an indie movie. You've broken the characters in the universe. It's also a bad movie all on its own, a bitter, hateful movie where you get the feeling that Mangold is just using blonde people as a stand-in for his hatred of all European people. Okay, so we are Shit, 25 minutes in. We are deep into this video. I think the problem with long videos is people don't subscribe to long videos. This is how the algorithm, this is how people work with videos. Like a 10-minute video or less, people will subscribe. A long video, people will watch, but they won't subscribe. So it's kind of a whatever. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. Where's I going with this? Let me get back to some of these images. Okay, deep in the video is most people have dipped out by this point. Let me be carefully on point here. 3 out of 5 movies in this indie universe, the antagonists are Germans. And it worked great in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was perfect for the time period. The sets and the settings and the costumes and the props were amazing. They're fighting on that airplane. The gas goes up and they're machine gunning it left and right. That was a lot of fun. That's fine. You can do one movie with one antagonist, but the next 4 movies you got to use different antagonists, and it's not that hard to find other antagonists. So Spielberg used the blondes as the Germans as the bad guys in 2 out of his 4 films. Of that time period, and Mangold uses it 1 out of his films. So 3 out of the 5 films are using the same antagonist, which is ridiculous, but there are a few reasons they do this. I mean, the obvious stuff, but also the fact that they're the only group without an organized defense or advocacy group, which the white pill is finally that is finally starting to change as people kind of are starting to organize and advocate on alternative platforms for themselves, which is great. But now Spielberg was a little different in his approach. He was obviously trying to make money and make a name for himself and make a movie that was fun and connected with the audience. His portrayal of the Germans, it was comically stupid in Raiders, but in 81, we just didn't know how silly all that stuff was. It wasn't real. It was just Spielberg with, 1, his hatred of them, and 2, he was trying to create evil characters, but that they weren't too dark, because he wanted it accessible to kids. And in the third movie, I don't remember if they were comically evilly portrayed or if they were more neutrally portrayed, if they showed just bizarre acts of cruelty that kind of didn't fit. But they were well spoken, they were organized, they were fit, trim, they looked good. They were it's like it was an honest. It was trying to fit the movie, fit historical context. They were in a group of intelligent people who acted like soldiers, German soldiers, who were mostly all those things. You have a group of higher IQ, mostly competent, highly competent Europeans. Spielberg wasn't going to push them as these comic book sociopaths. But that's what Mangold did in this movie. He turned them into these blindly murderous sociopaths who killed anything that moved. It didn't fit the movie. It didn't fit the consistency of the earlier films. It didn't fit anything other than you want to make them just violent for violence sake, like a who's that guy who did the Pulp Fiction movie? That guy had a kind of lot of overly violent movies. Anyway, so they go back in time in an airplane, and they're taking fire from boats or firing off these big spears. And it's like a child wrote this instead of just trying to evade, because they realize they're fighting an entire army of people who are firing on them, and then they're in an aircraft and one engine's out, but you can still maneuver. You still got power in one engine. You got the rudder, you got the ailerons, the elevator. You can still maneuver and get away from them, which in an aircraft is pretty easy to do. And most of the shots are gonna miss because the aircraft is going 100 miles an hour. It's much faster than what they're used to, so they're probably not going to lead the target correctly. It's nonsense. So instead they stand in the open door and they're firing at the sailors with their 9 mm Lugers and their machine guns. And the sailors who've never seen firearms before don't know what those are. They're not going to make the connection. That's childishly stupid, because Mangold wants you to hate these evil blonde men, that he wrote them as a cartoon, but it also breaks the character internal to this specific movie, but also the movie canon and also the real world history. None of this portrayal makes sense. Even the other mainstream, the Phantom Menace type of channels, we're talking about why the black chick was included in the film and the portrayal of the evil Euroman. I mean, it's obvious to anyone, even people who are studiously, trying to avoid the rabbit hole as much as they can. They just want to grill and they're clinging to that. It's like, I'm not going down the rabbit hole. I'm going to take you down the rabbit hole one way or another. Even to the extent I can on YouTube. It's like even the people who don't want to focus on that are noticing that there's something going on here. And I guess I'll leave it at that for what is this, a half-hour video? Anyway, the amount of effort I put into videos is obviously a labor of love. There's no money on YouTube. To say what I want to say without saying what will get me yeeted you'd laugh at it. It's like, why are you doing it? It's because it is a labor of love. Because some of this stuff is like, I like the YouTube platform because it's a mainstream platform where Odyssey and BitChute, it's like you're talking to a captive audience there. Like they're all mostly on your side. Some people will come to troll, which is, it's kind of cool. You feel like you've arrived a little bit when you get a couple thousand subs on Odyssey and BitChute, and like left wingers will come to troll. It's like, all right, as long as you don't make any illegal comments, I won't block you. Anyway, thanks again to LG and Vegan, who's sending comic books and pocket knives. And I'm excited over that, like just a child over Christmas. Over like, oh, comic books and pocket knives, sweet. For some reason I do like pocket knives and axes and machetes. I go like, so what would you use a machete for? Oh, I don't know. I don't have any machetes. I have a meat cleaver. I use that for like an axe. But it's like, why does someone want a machete? It's like, you have nothing to cut down with a machete. I don't know. It's just, is it the X gene, or the Y? I guess it's the Y. I don't know. It's like there's some need for people to have to look at machetes and think, I could really use a machete. It's like, that's $35. That is just, you might as well burn it because you'd never use a machete. It's like, I know, but still, that's a very cool machete. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks, very sincere thank you to all the supporters on the various subscribe, Buy Me a Coffee, Cash App, and on YouTube. And I will see you guys all next episode.